And next, I would like to give the floor to our first keynote speaker of the conference, the amazing Fátima Miranda, moderated by working group member Marta Raviglia.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you very much for being here. I'll introduce Fátima a little bit. Fátima Miranda, a composer, singer, and researcher of voice and vocal music, has cultivated an ethno-minimalist sensibility. Since 1985, she has defied conventional standards of beauty in song and spoken word, fearlessly exploring the rich tapestry of oral traditions. Rejecting comfortable stereotypes, she seamlessly combines Eastern and Western vocal techniques and her own innovative creations, treating the voice as an integrated wind and percussion instrument. This approach has enabled her to develop an extraordinary range of over 4 octaves, which she masterfully employs to craft a unique musical language and a vocal art that transcends the boundaries between singing, poetry, theater, composition, improvisation, and interpretation. Her solo concerts offer a captivating experience where her singular voice resonates in symbiosis with a remarkable poetic, gestural, visual, dramatic, and often humorous presence, deeply connecting with her audience. After completing her Master of Art in Art History, specializing in contemporary art with 2 published books on architecture and urbanism, Fátima Miranda directed the music library of the Madrid Complutense University. In the 1980s, she co-founded the improvisational group Taller de Música Mundana and the phonetic poetry trio Flatus Vocis. Her vocal studies include training with Japanese singer Yumi Nara and Mongol singing Trang Kwai Hang, Indian Drupad with members of the Dagar family, Bel Canto, and Mugam singing with Fargana and Alim Qasimov, and classical Persian singing with Masa Vadat. Since the 90s, she has created solo vocal performances, Las Voces de la Voz, Concierto en Canto, Artesonados, Cantos Robados, Perversiones, Madrid Madras, Madrid, all released on CD and DVD. And she was awarded many prizes like the DAAD Grant, Premio Internazionale Demetrio Stratos, Premio Cura Castillejo, Women Artist Video Art First Prize, and the Gold Medal for Merit in the Fine Arts. Miranda has collaborated with numerous artists, performing as a soloist in international festivals of contemporary and vocal experimental music, theater, sound, poetry, and performance art. Before I can have a chat with her, we would like to play a very interesting video of flashes of Fátima's different works. Enjoy.
Gracias, Marta. Las luces off.
Salam aleikum, salamanca aleikum, tora, 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 kabala, kabala, on mani padme un'ora, pronovi serrana, al toro bonito, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. que para Salla Maria Lecchia, Semmara, Pongo, Remongo, Resenga, Repongo, Quinco. Dale al acorde, venga, dale al acorde. Ya, 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 ya. ¡Ah! ¡Qué acorde! ¡Escucha! ¡Callaos! ¡Callaos los unos a los otros como hermanos! Punto en boca y orapronovis.com. Cagadiguina. ¿Qué? Quítate cagadiguina. Quítate cagadiguina. Quítate cagadiguina. Quítate cagadiguina. Quítate cagadiguina. Si ya te he dado la vida, llorona, ¿qué más quieres? ¿Quieres más? On the color que se... You say you love me. Well, just to prove. Do. Solo perfecto. Lancer des gerbes de fleurs sans remarquer le rire narquois.
10 milhões de abraços apertados assim, colado assim, calado assim, abraços assim, beicinhos e carinhos sem ter fim. Que vai acabar com esse negócio de você viver sem mim. Não quero mais esse negócio de você longe de mim. Não vou usar esse negócio de você viver.
Gracias.
Okay, so Fátima, your artistic journey is quite unique. And how did you discover your passion for vocal experimentation and performance art?
Well, this is quite a long and slow process. Even if it seems strange, because people think that I always wanted to be a singer, and I start like that when I was a teenager, but not. It is not that. It was by chance, completely by chance, after I had already 2 other careers. Sometimes it seems, not always, but sometimes in life seems that things doesn't happen by chance. In this case, it seems that it did several things, several moments, several steps, several, I would say, turning points that happens in your life. Seems that they didn't happen by chance. Well, I was never supposed to be a singer. I was never supposed to be an artist. I was never pretending to be a singer or an artist. Probably it was really hidden. So I didn't know it. Maybe we should start saying, once upon a time, and to find what is the origin.
But it's in one of your interviews, I heard at some point you said something that that was very, very strong to me, that you didn't know you were an artist.
No,
because you were a librarian you have been a librarian for many years.
That is why I say, once upon a time. First is, I come from Salamanca, which is already something. Speaking about mother tongue.
Yeah, of course.
You know, Castellano from Salamanca.
Spanish native speakers, of course.
You study Spanish from Salamanca.
And they know about Salamanca and its incredible tradition.
So another thing is that my parents come from a village in Zamora, Fermoselle, where I spent a few summers in my childhood, without which I think what I do on stage now will never happen if I was not spending those summers when I was a child. But, well, that in the talking at the end, if you wish to ask why, I can tell you more details. Well, yes, academically, I did the studies, a master's degree in art history, specialized in contemporary art. And I wrote several articles and books about it. I was really engaged with it. But I think let us say, the guiding thread of all these turning points, it is that when I do something, I do something. I mean, if I am in art history, I really try to give my best.
Of course.
So I cannot imagine that there is something after.
Yeah.
It is like, como si fuera esta noche la última vez. You know, it's something like, when I do, I do. Well, I could not imagine.
You were not imagining that you could
No,
have
absolutely
another
not.
career.
But the only thing I had clear when I finished my studies of art history is that even with all my colleagues, they were going to teach. The only thing clear for me is that I didn't want to teach. Well, already to have a no, it is something, or you don't want. Well, this was a starting point. I was really interested in research. In fact, I had many lagunas, empty spaces in the art history career. There were periods that were very little developed. Then how should I dare to teach? No, but I was researching art history. I wrote a book about, urbanist architecture of the fascist, let us say, Franco period. And it was published and, other articles on them. But I thought, I have to earn my life. What has happened is that I got very familiar with libraries, archives, during my research to make this thesis. And then I got very familiar with that. And then I was able to do the examinations to become a librarian for the Madrid Complutense University. And I thought, okay, I will do it. Because one thing was clear, I wanted to live in Madrid, and I wanted to keep on going researching. And I had good relation with legajos, I don't know how to say legajos, libraries, archives, documentary, and so on. I did it. I was leading the Fonoteca, like kind of sound library, music library at the university during 8 years. And I also was, it was nothing about that subject in Spain. Then again, like in art history, I had to start because what I did about the period of architecture was something very new. And then I had to research. I went to Paris, I went to London, to the National Sound Archive, how does they work, these sound libraries. Then I wrote a book, and it was really serious. This was again, como si fuera esta noche la última vez. Sound library, and I was very much required to give workshops, etc. And then, in the middle of when I was preparing that examinations, it happened a very interesting turning point. A musician who was also art historian, while doing the doctoral courses at the university, I met Laurence Barber, a musician who also art historian, and then we start a personal and long relationship.
You had a common background, and this helped in developing this musical relationship.
While, we became couple, and while I was studying those examinations, he were preparing an improvisation group. And that improvisation musical group, he wanted to be integrated by not academic musicians. Between, tema and tema of the oposiciones, we say examinations, I was going out during the rehearsals, and I was correcting them. I said, very interesting. No. What you did last week, it was much better. Do you remember when you was playing that little tube of electricity, and then you were answering like that? That was good. Why don't you repeat that? And then I was kind of directing them without having any knowledge about composition or whatever. But, yes, okay. Then the third time I was doing that, Laurence said, Fátima, come to the stage. Come to improvise. And the thing is that when I was teenager at the school, I wanted to play instrument. I was playing a little guitar. I had a pop group. I was in the choir. That was normal for me. I loved music. One of my sisters had the piano career, and when I was caminando a gatas, I was under the chair, listening all the Beethoven sonatas. So it was for me, I wanted to.
Very familiar.
I wanted to, but the thing is that I never pretended. You know, I always had to study Latin or Greek or whatever before, you know?
Before, yes.
You know, in Spanish we say, primero el deber y luego la devoción. It's like primum vivere and deinde philosophare, something like that. And then primum vivere. And I said, okay, I accept it because I really want, in a moment of my life, to do music. So it's fantastic to be able to improvise because, you know, in art history, I was particularly sensible to minimalism, performance art, constructivism, underground, pop art. So it was, for me, conceptually, was kept total affinity.
It felt very natural.
Yeah, for
Okay.
my philosophy of art.
Okay.
And then I say, okay, I should finish my examinations to become librarian, and then I start to rehearse with you. And then I was rehearsing, we were performing, and I remember one critic saying, it is remarkable the concentration of Fátima Miranda. And then I said, well, it is normal. I don't have anything else. I mean, what I have is como si fuera esta noche la última vez. What I have is to do the best with what I have in this moment.
Exactly.
And what I had is, you know, horns, conches, stones, pieces of wood, electricity, plastic tubes, is what I had. Then, okay, I went there. The thing is that I was at the same time at the music library, and by chance, one day, I went to a Japanese classical music concert, and I saw very elegant women singing with very low voices. I was in love with that, because very high. So I said, oh, women going with very low. And then I decided I have to go to Japan. But you know, I was leading the music library, so I could not. In a certain moment, after 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years leading the music library, I asked for a grant. I think I was quite convincing, explaining to the directors of all the libraries at the university how important was the classical vocal technique of no Japanese theater for the music, for the Fonoteca of Madrid University. I was quite convinced. And then they said, okay, I give you 1 year to go to Paris. That was essential. I went to study with Yuminara.
Okay, and this comes to
Another turning point.
To the second questions, because your use of the voice is very peculiar. And how many techniques were you inspired?
Yeah, that was
by?
the big question.
Yeah.
Yuminara told me, oh, you are the voice that a French composer, Jean-Claude Eloy, is looking for, but he doesn't know you. I have to introduce you. And then he introduced me, Jean-Claude Eloy, who was writing a piece for the Autumn Festival in Paris. Mm-hmm. Well, imagine, I was not at all known in the field of nothing. I mean, I was in the library field, everybody was asking for lectures, for workshops, and then Autumn Festival in Paris. Oh, okay. And then he asked me, and this was the big question, like
yes.
yours. It was the same question. What do you know to do with the voice? And then I said, oh, what do I know to do with the voice? Let me think. Well, why don't we do an appointment next week? And then the librarian came because, you know, I had also, with Llorens, that I had a group improvisation with
yes.
Taller de Música Mundana and sound poetry, Flatus Vocis Trio. And then I took the cassette because no Llorens, nobody were recording But as a sound librarian,
Of
I
course.
was recording the
You had
rehearsals.
to document.
The rehearsals. Then in that week, I started to listen to myself because I didn't know what to say to that man. What do you know to do with a voice? And then what I did, librarian, I make a catalog of my resources in the sense of I was codifying what I was doing in
all your
that cassette.
vocal
Yes, and then
possibilities.
I was seeing las constantes, what I do here, and then as if I just did this,
Yeah, of course.
or whatever. And then I was giving in the catalog name to all of them,
All of these sounds.
explaining to myself how I could do that.
Of course.
Because when you improvise, it is very fresh, very whatever, but then that happens sometimes with improvisers, that they don't codify, they don't lo sistematizan. Then I was making like this, and then 1 week later, Jean-Claude came to my house in Paris, and I remember that I have discovered a little bit the Indian music and the tempura. And I took, you know what is tempura? Is kind of a chord.
It's like a drone.
G sharp.
Yes.
Whatever. I was showing all the catalog. And then this man had a paper with the pentagrams, and then he was jumping from one pentagram to a fifth pentagram because he could not understand all this octave. Oh, he was fabulous. Okay. Then he wrote for me. And, well, I came back to the music library, but I had something clear after that year in Paris. In Paris, I have started with Mongolian diphonic singer, and I have discovered something that was, Jorge Barber, one turning point, Jean-Claude Delois, and a turning point asking me what I know what to do, and then I show myself on stage, dans l'Ancien Conservatoire de Paris, where Hector Berlioz has done the premiere of La Sinfonia Fantastica. I say, oh, good. And I felt totally quiet. So then I was asking to myself, how can I be so quiet in this situation? Autumn Festival
So you
of
felt
Paris.
very comfortable with
Yes,
that?
totally. I had, of course, the electricity we needed, but I was not nervous. And I have, the whole intellectual level of Paris. I had very good critics. In any case, I decided to stop at the university. Well, I have, to start to be 1 year because the director has been so faithful to me to leave me to go to Paris 1 year but I met in Paris, I had the occasion to assist to a concert of Vagar Brothers, which is Drupad music. Drupad music, that was another click. Drupad music, it is a music coming from the 17th century, and then I didn't understood anything when I went to that concert. But my ear understood something. It was almost like a minimalist. The beginning of the concert, the alap, the introduction of the raga, it was almost like minimalism. I said, oh, that keeps affinity with my brain. I should get lessons. Then I took the telephone, I asked for lessons, and that they were staying 1 month. I got lessons 1 month, and I didn't understood anything. It was like, repeat, sarigama, rigama, pagama, padama, padani, padanisa, sanida, panida, pamadapa, magapa, magarisa. And then, sari, sarigari, garigama, gama, etc. I say, okay, repeat, repeat, repeat. But I didn't know for what I was repeating. in any case, I had a sensation that I was not losing my time. I have the feeling. All this also has to do with kind of intuition that you have. Probably a deep part of you know, but you don't know. I say, okay, last day, the day before they were leaving, they say, oh, you are a very nice lady with very good manners, and we are going to invite you tomorrow to our goodbye party. Would like to introduce you, a very good student of my cousin in India, you know, with this Indian accent. Then they introduced me to one student of this family. This family, at that moment, they were last 6 alive of the 19 generations. Okay. Then they introduced me to a French guy who has been there something like 12 years studying. I stood there, and then I decided to go to India. In India, it was very hard, it was very interesting, it was very deep. This is something for like a specific question. What happened in India? How was it? The result, without entering in details, is that also I was not understanding what I was doing. But I was keeping faithful because it was, they were asking me, for instance, to get up before sunrise, 1 hour before, to practice during 1 hour.
You trusted practice very much.
But in the beginning I said, Spanish? Me? I get up at 5 in the morning to do what? Only one note? One note? What for? One note. One note is kind of useless, no? Oh, these Indians, my God. Oh, one note. They say, even 2 hours? Okay, 4 in the morning, then. Okay, no, this is not possible. Then I had a kind of crisis, like I say, do I stay or do I go? I have an open ticket. I am not obliged to stay. I had 2 careers. I was civil worker. I was suffering somehow. And then I gave to myself 1 week to decide. I decided to stay, but I said, if I stay, I do the morning practice. But this is a long, to enter in. The only thing I can tell you is I have taken 25 years to say, okay, to give workshops. And I can tell you that this is the only practice in the 30 hours course I give that we do every day. The thing is that where it was going, if I have to say, because you need like several lives to go, to arrive, to achieve the deepness of Drupal music.
Of course.
But I had no.
And not just that.
And also that I don't have so many reincarnations. Or at least I only am aware of this one. Yeah. So, you know, it was the main thing I can realize, and I could realize after I came back, when we start with another group, that my ear has totally changed.
And this is very interesting because you also blend a lot of different cultures, elements coming from different cultures in your music, and you deal with very diverse vocal tradition. And also you have this very authentic and peculiar way to approach writing for the voice.
Well, I would say the main thing from India was the ear training. So, once the thing is not a catalog of vocal resources. Okay, this is coming, kind of catalog. In a certain moment, you have rationally to know the big question, what do you know to do? But as Oscar Wilde said, something like, if in the picture you can see a very tiny element of technique, the picture is not finished. So you should not see the technique.
Of course.
I would like to say with this, I know that you are professionals and also students. Well, for everybody, linking this to the first and second question, I would make I would say a quotation from Saint Augustine,
Okay.
which is beautiful, and it connects very much what happened to me and what I am sure that can happen to everybody if we are ear open. And it is in relation with the chance why I didn't know I was not supposed to be artist. Is in relation with voice. I would not look at for you if I had not found you. And that is the point, is what is hidden in yourself, what is dark, what you don't know about. Because sometimes we are so sure about what we know. Yes, history of art, contemporary art, librarian, I am that, and we are so frontal, rational, that we don't have the abandon to listen what else you are, that probably a part of you knows, but you don't know. And that is very interesting. Not what you know about you, but what you don't know about you. And then that was by intuition, that the only thing I had was the concentration. But they were coming.
But, you know, that helped quite a lot.
surprises. And then I was dialoguing with the stones, with pieces of wood, like a percussion instrument. But when I came back from India, I was making more melodies. I mean, my ear has really grown far. So the importance is not the vocal techniques. The importance is to digest them. If you would like to connect with what I'm going to say, there is one of my creations, the one with the very big costume, which is cantos robados, which is stolen songs, and at the same time, it's Rolling Stones. In Spanish, when you say cantos robados, you are listening cantos rodados, which is a different thing. Yes, the thing is, then I have understood the importance of repetition. To have effects, resources like this, like that, I do this 4 octaves. No, this is not the point. After 25 years that they insisted to me to give courses, I arrived to the conclusion that in all this process, vital process, musical process, composing as a creator, as a singer, there are like 5 steps. Because to make a catalogue of wonderful acrobacies is not interesting. Well, okay, yes, you are an acrobat, but an acrobat is not necessarily an artist. So the technique by itself does not have value. What is a melody? What is a melody? A melody is simply a sequence of notes separated by intervals of time that gives to the notes a certain sense. But the question is not the notes you are singing or the vocal techniques, but the how. Is the way you do, is your sello, your language.
Of course.
So okay, that vocal technique, that one, but then you have to repeat. So the steps is 1, identify what I want to do, what I want to learn. Okay, now diphonic singing, now India, now, because now, in fact, I'm studying Persian classical singing, I mean, Iranian singing, whatever. Now I'm doing it, but then it's not a question of making a cocktail, it's a question of digesting metabolizar. I don't know how to say.
Making it your own, of internalizing
because
that.
if you digest, and you do it with this process, identify, and then you go, pa, 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 repeat, 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 then identify what you want to do, then control.
Control, yes.
I remember when I was coming out from Juminara house, some days I was like crying. Why? With the no classical Japanese. I mean, why yesterday I was doing very well and today, you know very well. You're a singer. So why yesterday was perfect and today not? This is the way, control, no? It's good, it's bad, and to identify when it's good and when the body starts. Because the thing is that you have the different techniques, but the thing is that all concerning voice is very objective in anatomic sense, but it's totally subjective because we don't have an instrument out of our body, so we cannot touch it, and everything goes with subjective sensations. So it's the body who has to identify. So when you control, identify, control, and then once it is controlled, it is the step of repetition. Repeat, repeat, repeat. And then I understood why the repetition in India, repeat, repeat.
It's so valued. Yes.
Because I understood that repetition doesn't exist. That repetition...
Fátima, can you share, because I think this is very much interesting for the audience, for the participants, how you approach writing for the voice?
I will finish a little bit what I was saying. Repetition is what leads to difference. If you say my language, my personal language, my way of doing, my how, mi cómo, comes from after repetition and repetition. It's like micro differences that are becoming a language, a way of doing that becomes yourself. And I think the duty of every artist in all material, I mean sculpture, painting, is to be yourself, not in egotistic or narcissistic way. No. So the thing is, the voice is a challenge to the memory. So the same technique, if you try to learn it, and I try to learn it, it should give a different result, because you have one background.
Of course.
I have another background. I have a childhood, you have another childhood. The expression of your parents, the phonetic of your language, of my language, and this is totally subjective. And the result is yourself. And this is the obligation of any artist, not to try to copy, not to try to make a copy-paste from Mongolia, from Azerbaijan, from Pygmy. No, this is kitsch. This is not novel. Okay, you can fit yourself, but then technique should be totally transcended. Then identification, control, repetition, and then mastering. And when you have mastered, you has dominado la técnica, then it comes the right moment. It is to forget. You have to forget the technique.
Of course.
But once you have automatized the technique, you can allow yourself to forget, because you cannot forget what you did not learn. Because there are many people that say, oh, I do what I want. But what do you want? Do you know what you want? And that is the point. This is the point. When you, after identification, control, repetition, mastering, then you can forget. And then is when art comes to you. Is when you are giving your language, and it's when this another Fátima emerged that I didn't know that was sleeping and hidden. So connecting with your last question, how I put those voices on score. Well, first of all, I compose for me. And then, of course, the audience is there. And I take in consideration when I have to finish the whole performance and to say, oh, 2 hours, not possible. I have to arrive to 1 hour 30, 1 hour. Then I can shape it. But I was already with Jean-Claude Eloy. We found a code how to write for me.
Okay.
While leading the Fonoteca, I was studying solfège because I thought it was coherent to do 3 years of solfège. So then we were combining pentagram with graphics. Then, in the taller de música mundana, I was using graphics.
Okay.
And when I was doing my own pieces, I understood that, voice is the more nuanced instrument that exists, because the voice is able to express a level of emotions that no other instrument is able. In fact,
That's true.
joyful, there are many ways to express sorrow. Your way to express certain sorrow, I will do it in another way. So in my way, there is no pentagram, there is not academic pentagram, clave de sol, clave de fa. There is not academic writing that could express all the incredible amount of patterns and nuances that voice has. And then I was not pretending to make an art piece, but I was doing what I need for me to remember and to study. Sometimes I had to use the pentagram, but very often what I study is not the pentagram, are the graphic scores. So in the website you have a few in the visual section. If you wish, we can show some of them. And then while I will read, while they will happen, I will read a text about my philosophy of graphic scores. This text is called The Skin of the Voice, La piel de la voz. Todo aquello que se vive, se anhela, se adquiere o se pierde a lo largo de la existencia, va dejando su huella en la voz de cada individuo. A modo de memoria, los afectos, enseñanzas, alegrías, adioses o accidentes van registrando en cada voz señales, arrugas, cicatrices, caricias, gestos, brillos y sombras, otorgándole su peculiar grano, textura, color, cadencia, timbre y expresión única. La de cada ser, la de cada cual. La piel de la voz se escucha. Cuando se compone hoy para esas voces otras, extremas, sin límites ni cánones, la cantidad y calidad de detalles a hacer constar en partitura es, por tanto, tan extensa y sutil como la capacidad de escucha y emisión del que la compone, la escribe o la canta. La clave de sol, el pentagrama, y la división de la octava en 12 semitonos iguales, establecida a finales del siglo XVIII, devienen hoy, por tanto, obsoletos y, desde luego, más que insuficientes. Expresar con precisión en términos de altura, medida absoluta y ornamentos convencionales, la amplitud, la levedad o riqueza de ciertos sonidos vocales, así como la de otros instrumentos, hoy ya solo es posible si se incorporan otras formas de escritura. Los parámetros ya son otros, o tal vez los de siempre, aquellos de antes de que la escritura musical fuera codificada y encorsetada, o incluso de antes de que el canto deviniera música. Tras la larga crisis de la oralidad, que futuristas y dadaístas ya empezaron a remontar, volver a los neumas, a los signos y a los grafismos, combinándolos, si el caso lo requiere, con textos explicativos y con escritura convencional sobre pentagrama, nos parece hoy el procedimiento más justo y eficaz para plasmar sobre papel todos los potenciales matices de los que esas voces y músicas, otras, son capaces. Y para terminar, una elocuente cita del poeta y místico sufí del siglo XI, Jalal-Din Rumi: abre tus orejas al cielo, tú, cuyos ojos se han convertido en oídos.
So unfortunately, we only have time for one last question, and then we'll have a Q&A. So at some point, if you have questions for Fátima, please start thinking about those. Not too many. Okay, Fátima, so this is like a very important question for me, because your work is so unique. And what messages or emotions do you hope to convey through your performances?
Well, there was another question we cannot develop, but it's good about the theatricality of... The thing is that music is not only music for me. Mm-hmm. Music has, I mean, if I do music, if I compose, is to put it in the highest level of perception, mine and from the audience. Then, that is why I conceive that is so important, the space stage, the lighting, the costumes, the colors, the gesture. And it touched to me very much the Antonin Artaud, mm-hmm. El Teatro y su Doble, that book where everything was important for the maximum of expression, to let it become, and we go to the question, mm-hmm. to make every concert, to make from every concert performance. I don't like to speak about theatricality, because theater is like representing, yes. Which is more histrionic, acting. No, it's presenting here and now. After so many repetition work, is presenting. So it is to make one experience from all, it's like kind of synesthesia, mm-hmm. from music. And from this experience, I would like not to say nothing, a message intelligible, not to say nothing narrative. I would like that the audience comes out from the performance with something to tell themselves that I was not trying to say. Everyone comes, that it happens something. It's important that certain experience happens to everyone, probably different experience, then there are possible so many readings, tantas lecturas as audience. So for me it's important that everyone comes out with something to tell themselves. I don't know what, probably different. So this has nothing to do with intelligible, speaking about mother tongue. It's nothing to do with intelligible words. Because I think with the artist, the poem, the work, the composition should tell to the audience is something, to say something to everyone that he or she needed, but he or she didn't know that he needed. Because, you know, sorry.
It's a complex issue, but I can get this, yes.
So
it's very deep.
We need something sometimes, like I needed in my beginning to know.
That we can't
but it's
express
someone
using
who puts
words.
you in a situation that you ask to yourself something. I'm not asking you, it is you with all this experience that comes out asking. I say something to myself and I needed this because people speak a lot about experimental. Okay, experimental in your house, but I wash dishes in my house. Then, it's not experimental, it's experience, which is something else. Experimenting is a very good way, but we should really, discernimiento in between experiencing, experimental, y experiencia, which has the same root, but means
experiencing
very different thing. And then
experimenting on experience.
So, which is very, very important, and I connect with, from this kind of experiences, often what happens is that people lose the fear. You know, people tell me, and this is very beautiful, when they tell me, oh, it's like you are, empoderas, me empoderas.
It empowers
Give me
you.
power, and you may make possible that I dare to do what is really very present in my life. I was not daring to do it.
Yes.
So it is what you were asking to me. What would you say? Can you formulate that question?
Yes, I mean, what message or emotions do you hope to convey through your performances?
That is it. Well, that is what I said before, is that you come out from the concert with something that you are telling to yourself. That is one. The other one is, I say something. No, I don't say nothing. Is the poet should mean something that you needed, but you didn't know that you needed. That is one part.
It makes sense.
That is one part. But the other part is, if I have to say something as kind of message, is I say to myself, and I say to the students and people who are right now experimenting, and I would like to make experimental whatever, and it's don't be afraid. To be afraid is something from the fascist power. Poner miedo. So, we have to be artists, the task of the artist. We have to be conscious that we live in a gregarious society, full of happy, normal human beings. Happy, normal human beings, but not from freedom, not from the difference of each one. This one, there is a very heavy power that we are exactly the same, that we think the same, that we dress the same, that we behave the same. And then we have the broken trousers, and a totally absurd thing becomes a fashion. And then, and then you pay incredible amount of money because it's a fashion. And it happens exactly the same with a voice. There is a very beautiful sentence of Einstein. Well, Einstein and Groucho Marx has said most of the phrases, interesting phrases. But, come dice, si non è vero, è bien trovato, no? Yes. The mind who is able to open to a new idea will never be back to the original size. Introducing this, if you dare to jump to something unknown, your brain came to another size. You will not be back. So, it is very important. Well, to me it happens, but it was not because I was pretending all this philosophy I'm saying. It's what I conclude from my own experience. I mean, we have to be, in a certain moment, we are very secure of what we know, very secure because we have invested, and you have done literature, you have invested, the term of investing. I have invested in a couple 30 years, so now I cannot divorce, because we have the house together, and we have the swimming pool together, and we have paid a country house together, and then we have to suffer all the life together because, we have made incredible inversion. We should sometimes to forget about inversion. And or the word abyss, abysmal, abyss.
Abyss.
Abyss, abyss. Okay. I say in lectures, often when I give lectures or when I give my courses, is if you don't throw away into the abyss, you will never get wings.
Ooh. It's time. Yes.
Well, this is the impression I have, because you always get a present, because you are connecting with something which is hidden, which is maybe dark, which you don't dare, because the expectations of your father, your boyfriend, are others, and you don't care about which are the expectations. Keep silent, keep in your studio, repeat, 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 even you get bored. Because from repetition will always come flowers, new, different, and you were not expecting them. And I am completely secure about it. So, artist's task, we should protect the society against the degradation of the taste, the degradation of the truth, the degradation of the beauty. We should try to be ourselves with our difference. We have to accept the difference in order to become free, in order to build a better world in which every and single individual could be himself or herself. That is the secret, to be ourselves.
Fátima Miranda. Have we got time for a couple of questions? No. Okay. So unfortunately, we don't have time for questions and the
sense of
humor because we will have to move to the next thing, which is breakout groups actually, and maybe Bea will have to come on stage and give us some information about that. But please, another huge round of applause for Fátima Miranda.
Thank you, Marta. And I have to thank you also to Beatriz Laborda, who is a really great coordinator, very patient, because I was treating this collaboration like if it were a big format performance. And also thank you, really, Marta.
Thank you.
I hope next time we could make together a piece, smiling in a specific rhythm.